Welcome to the Anatomy of a Business, a discussion of the businesses that serve our community, focusing on their challenges and their successes. I'm Bud Myers from Virginia Breeze Broadcasting Company, and joining me is Barry Moore, the President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Central Virginia. How you doing today, Barry?
I'm doing awesome. These Anatomy of Your Business is exciting. We have a brand new entrepreneur, but I think he's technically been an entrepreneur for a long time. Met him at the event, Richmond Christian Chamber, and was here in my office. He was a speaker, and since he's gotten accredited, we're excited to have him on board. And I think this podcast is going to be very different than the norm. And I'll let you go from there, Bud.
It is. So out there, when you're listening and you hear me stumble, that's okay, because I'm an old guy. Okay. Today, we're very, very lucky to have Dr. Carlos Rios with Axium-27. He's actually one of the principals and founder of the business. And when you look at his resume, I could spend 30 minutes actually going through the resume with everything that he has done with certification. He has attended the Liberty University School of Law. He has 27 years of federal experience in law enforcement operations with policy oversight and compliance. The type of person that when you want to look at your business strictly from a standpoint of how do you succeed and what do you need to look at, sometimes you strip away some of that emotional piece of it and get right down to the bones. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so much so that Carlos has developed something called Principled Leadership Performance Assurance. Carlos, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for the invite and for allowing me to share with the audience what we do with Axium-27 and how we can help them improve their business model and their performance.
I think that you approach this so differently from the business community that I've come from. And so when I listen to it, as you said, since you don't come from something, you can be critical of it, okay? Since you don't understand it. And so today you're going to educate me because, again, coming from startups, repositioning, from companies that needed to change brands, these different problems and issues that we have been creative issues, is somewhat not necessarily formula issues. And so I guess I want to start off with, when a company approaches you, are they in trouble, or are they more looking from into the future and they need guidance?
It could be both. So you could do, when you approach Axium-27, you can do it proactively. And when you do that, what you're really doing, you're investing in protecting your assets. Mm-hmm. Or if you're approaching Axium-27 because you have an ongoing problem, at that point now you've been reactive, which means now you're spending money trying to fix a problem. You're trying to now eradicate a liability. So those are the two variations of how we do business, because my service is based on an assurance-informed solution to whatever situation you're trying to address.
Do you think, well, when you go to them, have they defined the problem, or do they have a situation and you actually are going to find out where the problem is?
Well, that's interesting, because normally they believe that they have identified the problem. Let's say, for example, training. Well, I have this leadership problem with this individual. That individual, he or she needs more training. That's what the individual believes. So my job as a consultant is to identify the problem, define the problem, confine the problem, to then determine what will be the correct approach. So it is my job to educate and bring value to that business owner by, again, explaining, defining, identifying what the problem really is, so that that individual can make an informed decision as to how it is that he or she needs to address it. So as a consultant, your job is to not only simply address the problem, but also educate the business owner so that he could be in a position where he can control the conditions to prevent those issues from happening again.
Okay. Is it common that you find that there just isn't any structure? that the structure doesn't exist, or is it not enough structure?
No, actually, it is common for structure to exist. The problem is not necessarily structure. The problem is alignment and coordination, integration.
Can you?
Absolutely. So, for example, every business will always have, you got your business model, but you also have your different domains. You have your governance structure. Let's call it structure, systems, and components, SSEs, right? So you always have your governance structure. Whether it's a small business or a large organization, you have to have a governance component, right?
Right.
You're always going to have your leadership structures and systems, and then you're going to have your capabilities. Those three elements, they need to be integrated as one unit. Just think about like your cell phone. A cell phone pretty much represents an organization. Mm-hmm. So your governance is exactly what the structures that, the different components that create that cell phone, that makes this cell phone functional. Your leadership is that energy, that surge that travels through the network that unites those structures, systems, and components so that your cell phone can operate as one unit, whatever the designer decided it to be. And that's exactly how it works. So the ability to integrate those three elements in your business, it doesn't matter how big it is, that's the trick. That's exactly what I address. And that is where the challenge many times originates, because if you are, for example, a member, if your position, it's in the governance domain, then you might not have visibility of what's happening at the production area, right? Capabilities, your strategic management components, your culture, norms, right? Practices, principles, right? The how people feel about their integration in the system, in the business. You're not going to have that visibility. So you're going to depend on your leadership to be able to translate that strategic alignment into execution, but that can happen in a vacuum. That means that leadership element has to engage in proper strategic management so that they can leverage those production capabilities to their maximum potential. But that can happen in a vacuum, like I said earlier, right? So now you depend on people who really understand their role in the organization so that now they voluntarily come together and everybody pulls in the same direction, whatever that is. But if your governance does not project a clear vision, if your governance does not empower your leadership and enable your leadership to do what they need to do and give them enough space without losing oversight, everything starts getting misaligned as you keep going in the production element.
So when you begin this process, do you look at it from 30,000 feet? In other words, do you have to look at it across the entire structure to get to the problem, or are you zeroed in on one piece of it?
No, through the principal leadership performance assurance. So let's back up a little bit.
Explain that a little bit.
So the way business operates nowadays, the way leadership, the literature out there, when you're dealing with organizational performance out there, everything, it's almost like on a case-to-case basis. Mm-hmm. The literature out there is essentially designed on a person-to-person dynamic. Well, that becomes very amorphous. That becomes very difficult as a business owner for you to control. So you have to have some sort of objective standard that allows you to predict and control those conditions that put you in a position to be successful. That's what principal leadership performance assurance does. So the principal leadership assurance model or framework that I use in my advisory services, it's comprised by 5 specific domains. The first one is governance, integrity, architecture. Okay, so what it does is, like I said earlier, I look at the problem, whether it's a governance problem, a leadership problem, or what I call structural kinetics problem. Okay, but instead of looking at it from a 20,000 feet, my principal leadership performance assurance model operates on 4 lenses. The first lens is the governance, integrity assurance lens. The second one is the leadership operability assurance lens. The third one is a strategic kinetic assurance lens. And the fourth one is the CORA, it's the consistency of results attainment lens. Okay. Those 3 have to align to the same vision. So if we have, for example, a leadership problem, let's say Joe, the supervisor, is having problems with Jim, the employee. The first question is, what kind of problem are we talking about? Are we talking about a policy compliance issue? Are we talking about just simply somebody with a low moral issue? Are we talking about an individual who just simply does not follow rules? So that in and of itself puts me in a position to use what I call the critical functions advancing leadership success. So 4 buckets. Like I said earlier, every organization, whether you have 3,000 people, 4,000 people, or 5 people, every problem in your organization is going to come from 4 different areas. The first one will be strategic governance conditions. Is your governance element enabling your leadership individuals to translate their strategy into executable directional objectives? That's one. The second one will be leadership practices and design operability. Is your leadership operating according to the design basis of their position, exactly what they are intended to exist in the organization, or are they doing things on their own? If there is a misalignment between what governance expects them to do, now you have friction, now you have problems. That is going to have a ripple effect in how your employees are going to be perceiving their role.
Right.
Now, the third element will be your institutional integrity, ethics, functionality. Like I said earlier, you got whether that individual is following procedures, that individual is following policy. Well, that deals with that third bucket because that deals with your ethics. Are you being ethical? Ethical doesn't mean that you have to be committing fraud. Ethics also means, are you fulfilling your position according to the way that you know you should be doing it? And if you're not doing that, why not? And that leads me to the fourth bucket, which is policy, risk, compliance management. Is your policy restrictive, descriptive, or prescriptive? If you have a policy, for example, that is restricting you from doing the job, and you know that you're responsible for doing X, Y, or Z, that is going to create friction.
Right.
And then you as a leader have to moderate those dynamics. But if you can't translate those tensions to the attention of the governance element, so they can now figure out how to loosen up the policy, how to change policy, how to modify operations, now you have a boiling effect where at one point either that individual, the one responsible for producing whatever the activity is going to become so frustrated that it's going to start resisting that leadership guidance, is going to leave. And guess what? Emotions kick in. Now you have the emotional intelligence aspect coming in because emotions are very contagious. Now you probably have a morale issue, and people are not going to give you, are not going to be giving you a 100%, but instead now they're going to be defending, operating in a survival mode. Now you have a big problem, all because you have a misalignment. Whether on area 1, like I said, strategic governance conditions, area 2, which is your leadership practices or design operability, area 3, institutional integrity, ethics, functionality, or area 4, which actually encompasses everything else. That's the control aspect of my model, which is policy, risk, and compliance management. So having that objective standard allows you as a business owner to now have control over your conditions so that you can have a shot to be successful at your maximum potential.
I understand. Now, do you see where corporate evolving culture actually gets in the way of that it erodes sometimes the production?
It could be. It could be a problem, and that's why leadership is so important. A lot of times people look at leadership like a skill, and the literature out there, it's guilty of that. They teach leadership as a skill set, as a behavioral issue, as an organizational dynamic or process. But when you really look at leadership boils down to be nothing more than an operating organizational system and an integrated structural process. Those are the two things that leadership really does. Okay, so yes, culture changes, people changes, but what calibrates those variations is your leadership.
It's the leadership. And you've got a statement on here, and I'd like to go into it. It says, in a rapidly evolving world, leaders and managers are required to apply a certain degree of emotional intelligence to cope with the developing challenges and their environment. Understanding the value of emotional integrity in a leader's response to a crisis situation can play a significant role. Not a remedy, but a leadership enhancing agent. So where does this emotional intelligence play as far, I don't want to say percentage, but in what I'm reading or trying to understand your business concept, the concept that you use, that emotional piece of it is a smaller factor. It's important, but it's not where you're going with this.
So, yes, if you look at my model from 2,000 feet, it could look very mechanical, but it's not, because nothing that I have here, none of my structure can operate without leadership. And leadership is carried out by people. People have emotions. Okay, people bring to the table emotions, experiences, right, abilities, skills, and everything else. So your ability to connect with the individual beyond the transactional limitation, which is I need this from you, in exchange I'm going to give you that reward system. That is a huge component of what allows you as a leader to now enhance your leadership performance. It's not only directing someone to do something in favor of the organization. It's trying to motivate that individual to understand that he or she is critical in helping the organization reach whatever definition of success is. So emotional intelligence, what it does is it becomes a leadership enhancing agent. It's not a leadership model. Out there, you have this literature, popular literature, trying to project emotional intelligence like the silver bullet of leadership. And if you're emotional intelligent, every problem is resolved. No. Emotional intelligence is a leadership enhancing, I should say, agent. It allows you to not only demonstrate to the individual that he or she is not only valuable because of what that individual can do for the organization,
right,
but also because of an individual, a person, dignity. Okay, that individual brings a lot of experience, but also brings challenges. He also brings limitations. But everything is valuable. Everything it should be appraised, and the way you connect, the way you show the individual that he's valued more than beyond of what he or she can do for the organization is through emotional intelligence.
Does this process help also in integrating a new piece of leadership when you need more leadership or a change of leadership? How do you evaluate if that's the right person?
You're talking about for principal leadership performance assurance?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The leader has to be able to operate within those 5 domains. It's not just simply guiding Joe or guiding Jane and making sure that he or she's doing his job. That's not leadership. That's supervision. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you as a leader, you have to make sure you understand what the strategy is at the governance level, I should say. You have to be in a position to now translate that in a way that the people that are not in the room when those strategies are designed to understand what their roles are, direct them, right? Give them room to operate, give them the ability to exercise autonomy because you brought them to the table because they have a skill set that allows them to produce whatever you need so that you can take the organization from the business model to the final objective, whatever that definition of success is, okay? But at the same time, you have to be able to coordinate, to adjust, empower your people, but you have to also maintain accountability. That's the key component. That's the part of leadership that people have a hard time with because At the end of the day, you don't want to go back to your governance and report a problem because what are they going to say? Everything like Dr. Robertson, the founder of Tennessee Temple University, used to say, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Right.
So that's a very unpopular situation, right? So you as the leader, you're like the conductor of the operation, but at the same time, you're responsible for ensuring that the governance element understands what changed at the production level so they can adjust and they can strategize so they can, again, maintain control over the conditions that allow their people to perform at their best.
How could you help a company that is basically grows strictly through acquisition? It would seem to me that would be a major problem, and I've seen major companies. One, we had a very large furniture company here in Richmond that began to take big companies and buy them up, changing the culture. What it sounds like to me, though, was not just a change of the culture. It was a change of a lot of different strategies that never came together. What could you do to help that situation or get them aligned?
So it depends on the case, right? It depends on the actual problem. So I would need to be more specific so I can be accurate in what I'm going to respond to you here. But what I can tell you, based on the facts that you just shared with me, the mere fact that you're now going into acquisitions, right? It's the takeovers. You're talking about takeovers,
Right?
But okay, if you're engaging now, if your business model is exactly that, takeovers. My first question is, let's look at your business model. What is your end state? What is your purpose? Is you simply buying businesses for the sake of buying businesses, or what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, that's the first question that I want to have an answer to. Okay,
Let's say it's fast distribution.
Okay, fast distribution. Okay, why are you purchasing those businesses? Why are you making the decision to keep that, those employees? Is that your best approach? Do you need to bring different people? Those are different questions you have to really ask as you're strategizing. It's just not simply a matter of, taking over. It's the same thing as when you're engaged in international relations. If you're trying to, take over a specific piece of land, there's people living there, right? So what is the objective? What is the ROI? At the end of the day, you simply can't be, well, I'm trying to make more revenues. Well, those revenues come with a package. So an example of what you just shared with me, what is your strategy to account for that culture that you're now inheriting? Are you empowering them to continue to grow? Are you trying to shape them into the way you do business? And if so, what is your current structure to allow you to do that? Do you have enough a training structure? What is your timeline? Those are the things that I encourage people to think about before you make those decisions. Because once you already purchased the business, now you own it. Liabilities and opportunities and obstacles and the problems that those businesses have that you're not going to see on paper, because you're dealing with people. Okay, so now that you have, let's say your business A decides to purchase business B, and you chose to, as part of the contract, they chose to keep the people employed at business B. Okay, how do you know that they're compatible with your business model? Those are questions that need to be answered.
For sure.
And if you don't have the answer, that's fine. I come and I help you with that, because my job is to translate. My job is to calibrate, allow you to give you that flexibility so that you can continue whatever business model you're following without allowing those obstacles from slowing you down. So training could be an option, okay? The ability to create workshops is another option, but also having an assurance process taking place so we can determine what is their vision. How do they see things happening so I can align their vision with you, the takeover company, together so everybody can come together, as opposed to learning by falling and stumbling,
right,
which is normally what happens.
Exactly.
And if you can't do it my way, then, get out.
I get it, because
That's
really
a loss.
There's not a lot of investment in this area.
No, there's not. And what happens too is it's almost the hammer. They use the application of the hammer, which is, I'm the boss. You do business the way I say it. If you can't, then get out. Well, think about this. That individual, whenever he or she decides to get out, is leaving a huge hole in your organization. Oh, yeah, well, we got plenty of people out there waiting for you. How do you know? How long does it take? How much money? How can you quantify the experience that this individual who just left that position is going to be compensated by the individual coming in? Even if the individual coming in is more skillful than the one who just left, there's something that individual who just left took away from you.
Absolutely.
Institutional knowledge.
Yep.
You invested on that, and now you let that go.
And you're going to spend to get this one up to speed.
And now you're working in a responsive mode. A response will never be as quick as an action. A reaction, will never be as quick as an action. So now you're trying to bring these people, on board. you're never going to be able to match in terms of experience, in terms of capabilities, what this other individual already had. Just think about it this way. So let's say the individual who just left had 10 years with your business, producing at what is called an acceptable level. Those are 10 years of experience. Joe comes in. How long is it going to take for Joe to be operating at the same level of experience than the individual just left? 10 years. Wait, those 10 years that took Joe to catch up in terms of institutional knowledge and experience from the vacating employee now could have been 20 years of the vacating employee producing for you.
So how do you get a company to start thinking positively actionary instead of reactionary?
It's a conversation. So when they call me, I offer a 30-minute free consultation call. I need to know what their objectives are, what their goals are, to see what is it that they're looking for and what obstacles they see as we're talking. What are the obstacles that they perceive are preventing them from achieving those objectives? And in that conversation is when I start going through my principal leadership performance assurance mindset to determine, okay, here's what the problem is, and here's what the solution is going to be, and what's going to happen after that. So a lot of times what I do, again, if it's not like training, if it's not workshops, if it's just simply like a specific strategic engagement, I have to go through a discovery process so I can determine exactly what the issue is, and then I can educate you as to what's happening, where we need to go. Mm-hmm. Because it really, everything boils down to be a partnership. I just simply don't tell you what to do. I explain to you what the situation is, I educate you, and then we both walk together the solution route.
As we end this conversation up, who do you see as the most perfect client, or the client right now that's most in need of your services?
I believe it's the small to mid-size scale business. The major companies, there are plenty of big, consultants out there. They have that access. They don't. Money's not an issue. Unfortunately, the mid-size, the small-size business, that's the sector that gets overlooked, and they don't have access to this level of consultancy. That's what I bring to the table. My business model, my strategic approach is really designed for major corporations, but I scale it to a point where I want to offer that to the small business and the mid-sized business. So anyone coming from 5 specific sectors, whether it's a financial service sector, educational sector, public service, faith-based organizations, especially faith-based, because Axium-27 is a Christian firm, and I've been a man of faith who's been,
you actually have your
I'm an ordained minister.
Yes.
I see a lot of times where leadership becomes a problem in churches where there's a fracture, and that's the worst thing that can happen to a church when a split. Mm-hmm. It really hurts people. Okay, that's I tell you 4, right? And then the 5th one, it's the critical structure. Critical infrastructure. That's my background from, I'm a retired assistant director for investigations with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So I really understand the critical infrastructure aspect and the sector. So those are the 5 sectors that I typically serve. But more importantly, my business model, it's really designed to bring that big high-end package to the small business, mid-size scale individual.
And is it scalable to a point where once you come in, that company then is able to take it forward and be able to educate the rest of the company?
That's the idea. My goal is to create leaders within, from leaders. So my job is not just simply give you a solution. My job is to educate you so that the problem that brought me into your world doesn't happen again. But more importantly, within the same service, my job as an assurance-based professional is to come back and ensure that the solutions that I gave you, are working. If they're not, we're going to make the proper adjustments. In the process, I'm teaching you what I'm doing so that you can maintain control of your situation. I don't want you to be dependent on what I do. Instead, I want to give you that autonomy, but at the same time, I want to give you that ability to operate and prevent the same problems from happening again.
Dr. Carlos Rios, Axium-27, If you had been around in the 80s and 90s, I can give you 3 companies that could have used your services. Big time. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the ability of everything you guys are doing. This is huge. The Better Business Bureau. I can't thank you enough, because what you provide to individuals, to the business world, is the ability to show that we are legit, that we're doing business exactly the way that Axium-27 expects people to operate, with integrity. So thank you for the opportunity to share with the audience what Axium-27 is, how we can help them become better at what they're doing, and we're open.
And how can they contact you?
They can access our website. Is www.axium-27.com, or they can give us a call directly by dialing 703-588-9888. Make sure that once they get connected, they press 1 so that one of our administrative staff members can help them schedule that 30-minute free consultation call.
Thank you so much. And we have been listening about Principled Leadership Performance Assurance. Wonderful, wonderful segment. Until next week, thank you for listening to Anatomy of a Business. I'm Bud Myers with Barry Moore. You guys be safe. Bye-bye.